What if the moment you stop showing up is the moment everything starts changing? What if your silence speaks louder than all the words you've ever said? Think about it. Every message you send, every time you explain yourself, every time you stay available, you believe you are building connection. You believe you are proving your worth. But what if you are slowly making yourself easier to ignore? Why is it that the more you try, the less you are valued? Why is it that the more you give, the less people respect it? There is a pattern here, a silent rule that most people never understand. And because they don't understand it, they keep losing their power without even realizing it. You see, people don't always respond to effort. They respond to perception, and perception is not built on how much you give. It is built on how rare you are, how controlled you are, how much access people have to you. Right now, most people are too available, too easy to reach, too quick to reply. They are always there, always ready, always explaining, always chasing, and slowly, without noticing, they train others to see them as ordinary. Because the human mind works in a very simple way. It values what it can lose. It respects what it cannot control, and it chases what feels just out of reach. So when you are always present, always responding, always trying to prove yourself, you remove the very thing that creates value. Mystery, space, absence, and that's the part nobody talks about. Nobody teaches you that sometimes. The strongest move is to step back. Nobody tells you that your absence can create more impact than your presence ever could. Instead, you are told to try harder, give more, be more available, be more understanding, be more patient. But look at what that creates. Exhaustion, frustration, and a feeling that no matter how much you give, it is never enough. Because it isn't about giving more. It's about giving differently. There is a hidden power in what you don't do, in what you don't say, in the moments you choose to stay silent. And most people are afraid of that silence. They fear being forgotten. They fear losing connection. They fear that if they don't keep showing up, everything will fall apart. But what if the opposite is true? What if your constant presence is the very thing making you invisible? Think about the last time something became too easy to access. At first, it felt valuable, exciting, important, but over time, it became normal, expected, and eventually ignored. That is exactly what happens when you give too much of yourself without limits. You don't lose people because you are not enough. You lose value because you are too available. And this is where everything starts to shift, because once you understand this, you start seeing things differently. You start realizing that power is not in chasing attention. Power is in controlling your presence. The less you try to hold everything together, the more things reveal their true nature. The less you speak, the more people think about you. The less you explain, the more your actions gain weight. Silence is not weakness. Absence is not loss. It is strategy. And the people who understand this move differently. They don't rush to reply. They don't feel the need to prove themselves. They don't beg for attention. They don't chase validation. They create space. Because space creates curiosity. Space creates tension. And tension makes people feel. When you are not always there, people start to notice. When you stop filling every gap with your presence, your absence starts to echo. And that echo is powerful. But here is the truth most people are not ready to hear. If you disappear for a moment and nobody notices, then you were never truly valued. You were only convenient. That realization hurts, but it also frees you. Because now you understand that your job is not to be everywhere. Your job is not to be everything for everyone. Your job is to protect your energy, to protect your time, to protect your presence. And once you do that, everything changes. People start to feel the shift. They start to question. They start to wonder. And in that wondering, your value grows. Not because you forced it, but because you allowed space for it. So here's something important. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how to use your absence as power. You will learn how to stop being taken for granted and start being respected without saying a word. You will see how a simple shift in your behavior can completely change how people treat you. But first, you need to break one belief. The belief that being there all the time makes you important. Because the truth is, The more you make yourself constantly available, the less people feel your importance. And once you truly understand that, you will never move the same way again. Now look at your own patterns for a moment. How do you show up in your daily interactions? You respond quickly. You make time even when you are busy. You adjust your schedule. You give attention without being asked twice. You believe this is kindness. You believe this is loyalty. And yes, it is. But there is a hidden cost behind this behavior. The more you make yourself easy to access, the more people stop seeing the effort behind it. It becomes normal to them. It becomes expected. They don't pause to think about your time. They don't question your availability because in their mind, you're always there. And when something becomes expected, it loses its emotional weight. This is not about blaming others. This is about understanding how the human mind works. People don't wake up and decide to undervalue someone. It happens slowly. It happens through repetition. When something is always available, the brain stops treating it as special. Think about it in simple terms. When you get something every single day without effort, you stop feeling excited about it. There is no anticipation, no curiosity, no sense of reward. It just becomes part of the background. And that is exactly what happens when you are constantly present in someone's life without boundaries. You start as a priority, but over time, you become routine. This is where most people get confused. They think if they give more, things will improve. They think if they try harder, they will be appreciated more. So they double their effort. They become even more available. They sacrifice even more of their time. But instead of gaining respect, they slowly lose it. Because respect is not built on how much you give. It is built on how much control you have over what you give. When there are no limits, people don't feel the need to value what they receive. Not because they are bad, but because the mind naturally adapts to what is constantly present. And here comes the painful part. Sometimes you are not being ignored because you are unimportant. You are being overlooked because you made everything too easy. You remove the challenge. You remove the uncertainty. You remove the space where someone could feel your absence. Without that space, there is no reflection. Without reflection, there is no realization of value. This is why you see a strange pattern in life. The person who is always trying to hold everything together ends up feeling the most drained, while the one who knows when to step back seems more respected, more desired, more in control. It is not luck, it is behavior. When you are always reaching out first, always checking in, always making the effort, you create an imbalance. One side keeps giving, while the other side gets used to receiving. And over time, that imbalance grows. You start feeling it. Feeling that slight frustration, that quiet disappointment, that question in your mind, why am I not getting the same energy back? The answer is simple, but not easy to accept, because you trained them to expect you without effort. You showed them that no matter what happens, you will still be there. No matter how they respond, you will still give your attention. No matter how much they pull back, you will still move forward. And once that pattern is set, it becomes their reality. Now understand this clearly. People treat you based on what you allow, what you repeat, and what you tolerate. If you keep showing up without limits, they will keep accepting you without appreciation. If you keep giving without pause, they will keep taking without thinking. This is not about becoming cold or distant. This is about becoming aware. Awareness changes everything, because once you see the pattern, you can break it. You start noticing where you are overextending yourself. You start realizing where you are giving more than necessary. You start asking yourself one powerful question. Is this being valued, or is this just being expected? That question alone can change your entire behavior, because now you are no longer acting out of habit. You are acting with intention, and intention creates control. When you stop reacting instantly, people notice. When you stop making yourself available all the time, the dynamic begins to shift. It may feel uncomfortable at first. It may feel like you are doing something wrong, but you are not. You are simply resetting the balance. And balance is where respect begins. Not everyone will like this change. Some people will feel confused. Some may even pull away. But that reveals something important. It shows who valued you and who only valued your availability. This distinction is powerful, because now you are no longer wasting your energy trying to please everyone. You are focusing on where your presence actually matters. And that is where real connection starts. Not from constant effort, not from endless availability, but from mutual value. From both sides, understanding that time and attention are not unlimited. This is the shift most people never make. They stay stuck in the cycle of giving more, hoping for a different result. But results don't change until behavior changes. And behavior doesn't change until awareness becomes action. Right now, you are at that point. You can continue the same pattern, or you can start creating a new one. A pattern where your presence is not taken for granted. A pattern where your time is respected. A pattern where you are not just available, but valued. And it all begins with one decision: to stop giving without limits and start choosing when, where, and to whom your energy goes. Once that decision is made, something powerful begins to happen inside you. You stop reacting on impulse. You stop filling every gap with effort. Instead, you start choosing your moves with awareness, and that single shift changes how others experience you. Because now there is space, space where your energy used to be, space where your constant responses used to live, and in that space, something new is created. Curiosity. When people no longer receive instant access to you, their mind starts asking questions. Where did you go? Why are you not responding the same way? What changed? And those questions begin to pull their attention toward you. This is how psychology works. The mind is drawn toward what it cannot fully predict. When patterns break, attention rises. When certainty disappears, focus increases. And when focus increases, value begins to grow. You don't need to announce anything. You don't need to explain your shift. Your actions speak in a language that everyone understands. Consistency in distance creates impact. When you no longer react instantly, your responses carry more weight. When you speak less, your words feel stronger. When you show up less frequently, your presence becomes noticeable. This is not about playing games. This is about understanding human behavior at a deeper level. People are emotional beings. They feel more than they think, and feelings are triggered by contrast. When something changes, it creates a reaction. When everything stays the same, the mind goes into autopilot. Before, you were part of their autopilot. Now you interrupt it, and that interruption brings awareness back to you. At first, it might feel strange. You might feel the urge to go back to old habits. You might feel like you are losing control, but in reality, you are gaining it, because control does not come from doing more. It comes from doing less, with purpose. This is where your mindset must become strong. You have to accept that not every message needs an instant reply. Not every situation needs your presence. Not every connection deserves your full energy. And once you accept this, your actions become sharper. You start observing more, you start speaking less, you start choosing carefully, and people feel that difference. They notice that you are not as easy to access as before. They notice that your attention is no longer automatic. They notice that your energy is not something they can take for granted. And slowly their behavior changes. They start reaching out more. They start paying attention to your responses. They start valuing the moments you choose to engage. Why? Because now there is a sense of uncertainty. And uncertainty creates emotional movement. When everything is predictable, the mind relaxes. But when something becomes unpredictable, the mind becomes alert. It starts focusing. It starts analyzing. It starts caring. That is the shift you create when you step back. Not by force, not by manipulation, but by self-control. And self-control is rare. Most people act on impulse. They reply when they feel like it. They chase when they feel ignored. They try to fix things instantly, and in doing so, they lose their position. But when you slow down, when you hold back, when you give yourself time before reacting, you move differently. You create tension, not negative tension, but emotional tension. The kind that makes people think about you when you are not around. The kind that makes your presence feel meaningful when it returns. This is where respect begins to grow. Respect is not built through constant effort. It is built through consistency in boundaries. When people see that you do not break your own limits, they start respecting them. When they see that you are not always available, they start valuing the moments you are. And this changes the entire dynamic. You are no longer chasing attention. You are attracting it. You are no longer trying to prove your importance. You are allowing others to recognize it. This is a silent transformation, but it is powerful because it shifts everything from external effort to internal control. Now understand this clearly. This approach will not keep everyone around. Some people will drift away, some will stop engaging, some will lose interest. And that is not a loss, that is clarity. Because those who only stayed for convenience will not stay when convenience is removed. And that reveals the truth about who values you for who you are and who only valued what you gave without limits. This clarity is important because it protects your energy from being wasted. And once your energy is protected, it becomes stronger. Stronger in your focus, stronger in your decisions, stronger in your presence. And people feel that strength, not because you say it, but because you embody it. You no longer need to chase. You no longer need to convince. You no longer need to explain. Your behavior does the work. Your silence communicates. Your absence creates impact. Your control builds respect. And once you reach this point, there is no going back. Because now you understand something most people never realize. Value is not created by being everywhere. It is created by knowing exactly where you should be and where you should not. And when you finally reach that level of awareness, a new identity begins to form. You are no longer driven by the need to be seen. You are guided by the decision to protect what matters. Your time is no longer something you hand out freely. It becomes something you choose carefully. This is where true transformation begins, because now you understand that your presence carries weight. Not because you force it, but because you limit it. You no longer feel the pressure to respond to everything. You no longer feel the urge to explain yourself again and again. You become calm, steady, and intentional. And that calmness changes how others respond to you. People begin to feel a difference they cannot fully explain. They notice that you are not reacting the same way. They notice that you are not trying to keep everything together. And that creates a shift in how they treat you. They start respecting your time more. They start thinking before approaching you. They start valuing the moments when you decide to engage. Why? Because you created standards. Standards are powerful. They silently teach people how to treat you. They show others what is acceptable and what is not. Without saying a word, you set a boundary that cannot be ignored. And once those standards are in place, everything becomes clearer. You no longer feel confused about where you stand. You no longer question your worth based on someone else's behavior. You are grounded in your own value. This is the point where emotional control becomes your greatest strength. You are not reacting based on feelings alone. You are choosing your actions based on understanding. Even when you feel the urge to go back to old habits, you pause. You think, you decide. That pause is powerful because in that moment, you are no longer controlled by impulse. You are controlled by awareness, and awareness leads to discipline. Discipline in how you communicate, discipline in where you invest your energy, discipline in how much access you allow others to have. This discipline is what separates you from the majority. Most people cannot hold back. They feel something and they act instantly. They want attention, so they chase it. They feel ignored, so they try harder. They feel uncertain, so they over-explain. But you are different now. You understand that not every feeling needs a reaction. Not every moment needs your input. Not every situation deserves your time. And that understanding gives you power. Because power is not loud. It is quiet. It is controlled. It is steady. You start moving with confidence, not because everything is perfect, but because you trust your decisions. You trust your boundaries. You trust your ability to walk away when something does not align with your standards. And that trust makes you strong. People can sense it. They can feel that you are not easily influenced. They can feel that you are not dependent on their attention. They can feel that your presence is something they cannot control. And that changes everything. Because when people realize they cannot easily predict you, they begin to pay more attention. They begin to value your time more. They begin to respect your space, not because you demanded it, but because you showed it through your actions. This is the real shift from seeking approval to setting standards, from chasing connection to choosing connection, from being available all the time to being present with purpose. And once you live this way, your entire environment begins to change. You attract different energy. You attract people who understand value. You attract situations where your presence is respected, not expected. And more importantly, you start respecting yourself. Because every time you choose not to overextend yourself, you reinforce your self-worth. Every time you protect your time, you send a message to yourself that you matter. That internal message is everything, because the way you treat yourself becomes the blueprint for how others treat you. If you ignore your own limits, others will ignore them too. If you give yourself no space, others will take up all of it. But when you honor your own boundaries, others are forced to do the same. This is not about distance. This is about alignment. Alignment between your actions and your value. When those two match, your presence becomes powerful without effort. You don't need to say much. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. It is felt. Felt in the way you move. Felt in the way you respond. Felt in the way you choose when to engage and when to step back. And that feeling leaves a lasting impact. Because people may forget what you said, they may forget what you did, but they will always remember how your presence made them feel. And when your presence is rare, controlled, and intentional, that feeling becomes unforgettable. This is the level most people never reach. They stay stuck in patterns of overgiving, over-explaining, and over-chasing. They never realize that the answer was never in doing more, it was always in doing less, with purpose. And now you see it clearly. You see the difference between being everywhere and being valued. You see the difference between constant effort and intentional presence. And once you truly understand this, you step into a new way of living, a way where your absence is not weakness. It becomes a statement.